This podcast contains adult language and stories of true crime. If you don't like laughing, crying, or being horrified at the actions of other humans, this podcast is not for you.
Not recording. Good call.
Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Resolve Mysteries.
Hi. Hello.
So, as many of you already know, this is a podcast where we rewatch episodes of Unsolved Mysteries, and we each take a case or two and research it and provide updates. If you want to watch along with us, you can basically watch Unsolved Mysteries in a million places now. It used to just be Amazon Prime, but now you can watch it on YouTube, Tubi TV, Pluto TV. Some of them are for free. So if you want to watch along with us, please feel free. I think it's more fun if you watch with us, but I don't know.
Yeah. But we also get that not everyone has time. Like we do. We just have ample amounts of time.
We have nothing but time. This is all we do 24/7.
No, but you really don't have to watch it, but it's fun if you do.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like a lot more people are now anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Because they love it. How can you not?
How can you not?
I feel like people probably were like, oh, I guess I'll watch one so I can know what's going on next. And then they just kept watching it because it's the best show in the history of television.
Totally.
So this week we want to shout out our newest patron. Her name is Kara M. She's awesome. And
Kara, you got some goodies coming to you, honey.
yeah, girl. You got a lot of goodies coming. And then before we start, I have You Done Fucked Up. It was me. I fucked up pretty spectacularly because I went through the work of spelling the name out, but it was totally the wrong name.
Love it.
Oh.
Yeah, it was super wrong. So in the listener short stack, in the first letter we received from the listener, she talked about her father, Paul Jenkins, and how he was falsely convicted for a murder he didn't commit. The woman who was murdered, her name was Donna Meager. I said Donna Meagle.
You know why you said that?
Yeah,
Parks
fucking
and
Parks
Rec.
and Rec. Yes. The victim's name, and no disrespect, I'm not laughing at the victim.
No.
I'm laughing at how stupid I am. Her name is Donna Meager, Meagher. So I think we have a pretty good episode this week.
Yeah.
you guys.
I'm excited.
Yeah, we've got some pretty awesome stories.
I'm not going to say it's a beefy-sode
You just
because they
did.
hate it.
So gross.
But it is.
So, Karlin, you're going first.
Yeah, girl.
I'm going first. I'm going to be telling you the story of Lester Garnier, which I believe at the end of our last episode I said Garnier, and I'm sorry
like the
because that is
shampoo.
a well-known name. There's a shampoo called that. So anyway, Lester Garnier and Unexplained Death.
And I am doing the unexplained death of Kathy Hobbs.
Ooh, that's a rough one, honey.
Yeah.
So I'm covering a Lost Love segment. It is the story of Bill Purinton and his search for his sister, Jackie.
And then I'm telling you one more story, which is that of Angelo Desideri, who is missing.
That's a good one, too.
I love that last name.
Desideri. Mm-hmm. That's cool. All right, let's go.
Do it.
So I'm going to tell you the tale of Lester Garnier. This story starts on a quiet morning, July 11th, 1988 in Walnut Creek, California, which is an affluent suburb of San Francisco. And guess what county it's in, ladies?
Contra Costa, baby.
It's
Man.
cursed. I don't know what's going on there. So a groundskeeper notices a Corvette sitting in a shopping center parking lot. He looks inside the car and sees the driver napping behind the wheel. Stack interjects and says, the man was not asleep. He was dead.
Gasp.
Which was strange. As the camera pans around the other side of the man's face, you can see like blood dripping down from the top of his head. Detective Jerry Whiting says the cause of death was determined to be 2 bullet wounds. This one was an extremely cold-blooded, deliberate killing. The sort of person that would do something like this is extremely dangerous. Stack explains that the victim was Detective Lester Garnier, an undercover vice cop with the San Francisco Police Department who lived in nearby Concord. They show a photo of Garnier, and he looks super, super young, but I think he was like 30. But he looks really young in that picture. After they realized that Lester was an undercover cop, the investigation took on a new dimension. Both Walnut Creek and San Francisco Police Departments work on the case, but that's not exactly true. Jerry Whiting says that there was very little evidence left at the crime scene that could help identify the killer. They were able to find a few fingerprints, and in their reenactment, they show these like on the side of the car. They're dusting for fingerprints, but the fingerprints have not been identified. They've been unable to identify any motive for the killing. Garnier's death touched off a firestorm of controversy when the case became enmeshed in a local political scandal. Stack says, to those who knew him best, Lester Garnier was a walking contradiction. To his parents, he was a devoted son. He had moved his parents into a nice house to take care of them. And they cut to Lester's mom, Jean, who says, Lester was a wonderful son. He was always there for us. He gave us security, knowing that if anything happens, he's always there for us. To his friends, Lester was a man who lived and loved in the fast lane, says Stack. But to his partners in the police force, Lester Garnier was first and foremost a dedicated cop who went the distance for his job. Stack says somewhere between the lines of these contradictions may lie the reason why Lester Garnier was murdered. Stack says that when he was off duty, chances are Garnier would be behind the wheel of his 1984 Corvette.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So how much money did police officers make back then, and how is he able to afford buying his parents a home and drive a Corvette?
You have a great question.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I will address. And like when in that picture, like it's immaculate. It's very fancy. It's very nice. So Stack says there was another side to Lester Garnier. Off duty, he was a ladies' man, and Garnier's friends backed this up. Stack says that Lester would use his charm on the job as well. Lester's beat was the Mission District, which was actually where he grew up. Once a quiet residential neighborhood, today a low-income area frequented by prostitutes, which is a word that we don't use on this podcast, so I'm going to change it for the rest of this segment to sex workers.
Hear, hear.
Stack says that Lester had worked Vice for 4.5 years and was at home on the mean streets of the Mission. And like he literally grew up there, so it wasn't like he felt that he fit in there and, you know.
Yeah.
And wanted to do good for the neighborhood.
Yes, totally. He would often dupe sex workers by posing as a customer.
Boo.
Boo. Entrapment.
Detective George R. Willis says he'd made numerous arrests for prostitution. Willis says they looked into that aspect of Lester's work and even interviewed all of the sex workers that he had arrested, but many of them actually spoke highly of him. I don't know if he was just treating them well.
I think he probably treated them well after he arrested them and wasn't horrible to them, as I'm sure a lot of male police officers were.
Right, because they actually had like good things to say about him. Lester's sister, Margot Garnier, says that he enjoyed his job and actually wanted to make a difference in improving the area and keeping things safe, like you mentioned. Stack says that one of Lester's last assignments would throw the murder investigation into turmoil. In the fall of '88, Roger Boaz, a local mayoral candidate, pled guilty to having sex with underage sex workers. Lester had been at stakeout duty at one of the houses in the prostitution ring just prior to his death. So the media, of course, attempted to tie the events together. Rumors that some San Francisco police could have been involved in Lester's death started circling, but as of the UM airing, so far these rumors are uncorroborated. Whiting says that they addressed it and did a thorough investigation, but they found no connections between Garnier's death and the Roger Boaz case. July 10th, 1988, 12 hours before his body was discovered, Lester left home to visit friends in San Francisco to go see a movie. Less than 20 minutes later, Lester called from his car phone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What up, 80s? And then this is where I made a note that didn't only super rich people have car phones in Corvettes.
Yes, ma'am.
So Lester called his friends and canceled for the evening, giving no explanation other than that he was running late and it was getting late.
When Stack or whoever says that, I thought he said, because I'm getting laid. And I was like, I hate this guy. But then I rewound and it is getting
But it could have just as easily been that, according to his friends.
And in UM, they didn't say he was going to a movie, but that actually made it make a little more sense because he was like, I'm running late. Oh. So I'm not going to get there in time for the movie.
Yes, that does make more sense.
So he canceled it, saying it was getting late. The police don't know what happened to him between that time and his vehicle showing up in the mall parking lot just before 11:30 p.m. There had been a carpet layer working in one of the stores that evening. As he went out to his truck, he heard what sounded like firecrackers, and being that it was just after the 4th of July, he assumed it was firecrackers and thought nothing of it. Shortly after, he says that he saw 2 women walking across the parking lot, both blonde. The women entered 2 different vehicles and then left. The workman describes the women. One was in her late 20s, about 5'6", and 110 pounds. The other in her mid-30s, tall with a slender build. They also located a witness who was driving through the lot. He drove past the Corvette and saw a woman open the passenger door and exit the vehicle. He says he saw her walk around and appear to look in the driver's side of the Corvette. Whiting says that, of course, these could be two separate sightings unassociated with each other. Stack says that under hypnosis, the second witness helped police to create a composite drawing of the woman. Her appearance was similar to the eyewitness description of the shorter woman that the carpet layer gave. We'll put this composite on the Instagram. It's a
terrible composite.
It's just a very generic blonde woman.
Yeah.
And then the back, there's a composite of the back of her body, too.
Yeah, just in case you need to see what her figure looked like, I guess.
Also, the women in the reenactment, the women were very conservatively dressed, and I thought that was interesting.
One was wearing like a power suit.
Yeah. One looked, they were dressed like businesswomen or like respectable women, and I was like, these women killed him? They look totally legit, you know?
That's a good call. I didn't even think about that. So Stack says, could a casual pickup have turned into something deadly, or was Lester killed as a result of his undercover life? In the update, they say a fingerprint found in Lester Garnier's car was linked to the blonde woman seen by the witness. However, authorities do not have enough evidence to file charges. A $250,000 reward is being offered for information leading to an arrest in the case.
So she couldn't have been like a professional killer if she wasn't wearing gloves.
Right. Well,
she could have been a hired killer, but she wasn't very good at it.
Yes. So this segment originally ran on the May 15th, 1991 episode. And I'm going to tell you at the top that this case is still unsolved.
What?
After Garnier's body was identified, investigators took note that the officer's vehicle was unlocked, his window was rolled down, and his car keys were missing. His wallet and police badge were tucked away in the glove compartment, and the normally cautious officer had come without his weapon. So, theory time. There's lots of theories. The gun used to kill Lester was never found. The investigation showed that the gun used to shoot Lester was an AMT 380, which was commonly carried by officers as a backup gun. Oh. The theory here is that Garnier was killed by a corrupt police officer who was involved in the prostitution rings. A dozen San Francisco officers were questioned. However, ballistics tests confirmed that none of their guns were used. No other evidence ever came up to link the killing to one of Lester's fellow officers. They even compared the composite drawings to female officers and interviewed them, but no clues ever came together.
So could they have possibly used his gun, or that they know for sure he didn't bring it?
I was listening to The Trail Went Cold.
Yay, Robin!
Their episode 108 is about this case. He said that both of his guns were left at home.
Okay.
So they know he didn't bring them, which is another reason to believe this was not related to his work in any way.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Another theory that was mentioned on UM is that he was killed by Roger Boaz, the mayoral candidate who was caught having sex with an underage prostitute. An article I read from 1998 said the sensitive investigation led to the indictment of former city chief administrative officer Boaz and police officer Patrick Miyagishima. Before Garnier's death, authorities were investigating police bachelor parties during which young prostitutes allegedly attended, invited by Miyagishima.
Wait, do you want to say sex workers?
Well, I think she's quoting.
It's a quote.
Okay.
The term underage sex worker is a misnomer. It's a child. They're having sex with people that are under the age of 18. So please stop calling them sex workers. They're children that are being sexually taken advantage of.
Yeah,
you know?
Great point. Police also want to learn more about off-duty contacts that Garnier, 30, had with prostitutes who did not work for the prostitution ring. Miyagishima was eventually fired from the force after pleading guilty to having unlawful sex with a minor.
Ugh, gross.
Boaz pleaded guilty to patronizing the brothel. Then Mayor Frank Jordan had denied any link between Garnier's death and the prostitution ring. Walnut Creek authorities conducted up to 500 interviews at the time in connection with the case, only to come up empty-handed. Shit. There is also another piece to the puzzle of this story that makes things even more confusing. Bear with me. There was another level of bungling in this case due to the confusion between who was handling the case. The Walnut Creek Police Department or the San Francisco Police Department.
Lord.
So there is a very, very lengthy article I put in my sources that you can check out if you want to. It's so confusing. I read it so many times. And I'm still a little confused about how this all went down. And this is why people have their theories about something shady going on with the police. San Francisco initially let Walnut Creek take the case because it was their jurisdiction. And I later read because they knew there was a lot of corruption going on in the San Francisco PD. So they wanted them to stay out of it.
Huh.
As the case went on over time without being solved, the San Francisco PD then began to question the work of the Walnut Creek PD, but the Walnut Creek PD then pointed fingers back at the San Francisco PD for not having been involved earlier.
Oh my God, grow up and solve the crime.
Yeah. Garnier was privy to a number of sensitive investigations involving everything from a high-class house of prostitution to one of the largest sports bookmaking operations in the country.
Oh, well, that involves like the mob too, generally.
Oh, okay. Federal law enforcement agencies have conducted long-running investigations of corruption inside the San Francisco PD involving Garnier's vice. When the San Francisco Police Department Homicide Lieutenant Gerald McCarthy heard the news of Garnier's killing, his first impulse was to take his whole unit to the crime scene. Quote, "Then I got a call from the deputy chief's office and was told Walnut Creek would handle it. Lead SFPD homicide inspectors were mad at me for a year. They thought I made the call," said McCarthy. McCarthy wasn't lying, said San Francisco Police Chief Earl Sanders. "My partner, Napoleon Hendricks, and I were regarded as the most experienced investigators, and yet we were directed, you two stay out of it."
Oh.
Lieutenant McCarthy says the order came through the office of Lawrence Gurnett, who was deputy chief at the time. Gurnett says he doesn't recall making that order, but he says the out-of-town jurisdiction of Garnier's killing prevented the SFPD from leading the murder investigation.
I have a question. Was Garnier directly involved in the exposure of the two high-up police officers who were engaged in...
Not really. He was staking out at the houses involved.
Yeah, so... But he didn't,
minimally, he wasn't like the top of...
I was going to say, he didn't blow the whistle on it.
Exactly.
So to come after him specifically doesn't really make much sense.
So, like, Robin, the host of The Trail Went Cold, really doesn't think that this theory has any weight because it just doesn't make sense. Like, he wasn't important enough, I guess, in that aspect to have been killed about it. Quote, "The city didn't do right for Lester," said Mike Kemet, the department's former lieutenant of vice and Garnier's supervisor. "I always felt like we could have done more, that we would have could have shaken the bushes, gotten our snitches working. I'm kind of ashamed of myself for not pushing more." Aww. To this day, many SFPD officers are convinced that if experienced San Francisco homicide inspectors had been allowed to investigate the crime scene, Garnier's killer would have been found. Quote, "They wasted so much crucial time," said Crenshaw, a San Francisco PD sergeant in narcotics at the time and a friend of Garnier's. So there's still just so much confusion there around what was going on and why those two police departments were not working together. And they did ultimately, but not soon enough.
And presumably, since Walnut Creek is a more affluent area, they don't have as much experience dealing with homicides as San Francisco PD would.
Totally, yes. There's some other weird side theories, one of which surrounds the curiosity that Lester had a lot of money for a police officer. He had a super nice house. He provided for his parents. He had a Corvette with a fucking car phone. Some theories were that maybe he was involved in some sort of shady business that nobody knew about, but Lester actually just worked several side jobs outside the police force. Oh. He picked up a lot of jobs as security, and all of his work seems to be on the books as legitimate.
Wow.
So he was actually just working super hard.
He's just a hustle.
So now let's talk about the one piece of evidence that we do have that did draw a connection, the fingerprints on the car.
Yeah, man.
In June of 2008, the shorter woman seen leaving Lester's car was identified as Scottish national Catherine Scotty Kuntz. Oh. Her fingerprints matched those found in his car. That's who that picture is of.
Oh, boy.
Ew.
Kuntz was the ex-wife of a Navy petty officer who had a history of drug abuse and prostitution arrests. So they theorized that because her husband was in the Navy and she was home by herself so much that she developed a drug addiction and then had to become a sex worker to support her drug addiction.
Okay.
She had never been arrested in San Francisco, however, and police have never been able to establish that she and Garnier were acquainted. There was like one small connection where she was once a waitress at this restaurant that his family would frequent a lot, but she worked there like for a very short time. It just doesn't seem like...
So then her fingerprint was there because she like might have walked past the car or something?
Was it found in or outside?
On the window, and it was a partial fingerprint. So, in 1991, after moving to Florida, Kuntz was accused of attempting to murder her husband after a teenage girl told police that Kuntz had promised her $15,000 in life insurance money if she would shoot him. The girl was convicted, but Kuntz was acquitted after her husband testified in her defense. The charges of conspiracy against her were dropped, and she later pleaded guilty to assault. This is when the police first obtained Kuntz's fingerprints.
Wait, what? Hold on.
That sentence was confusing.
I know, and this is straight from an article.
Kuntz, the girl came to the wife and said, your husband said he would pay me $15,000 if I shoot him?
Vice versa.
Say,
She offered the teenage girl $15,000 to shoot her husband once the life insurance money came
got
in.
it.
Yeah.
I got you. That sentence was confusing.
Yeah. The girl was convicted, but Kuntz was acquitted after her husband testified in her defense, which is nuts. But that's where her fingerprints first were obtained. Kuntz was later arrested for drug charges in Florida, where she was first convicted of cocaine possession and then failed a drug test. Police have repeatedly interviewed her, and she has denied having anything to do with the officer's slaying. Hal Jewett, the head Contra Costa County homicide prosecutor, said he had reviewed the case against Kuntz in the Garnier killing on several occasions and concluded each time that there was not enough evidence to bring her to trial. Unfortunately, Jewett said, their investigation also uncovered significant questions involving at least 2 other parties. While it's clear that Ms. Kuntz was in the general area of the killing, the fact does not establish her as the shooter. That is the critical area of the investigation, not whether she was present, but whether she shot the officer, Jewett said. There is some evidence that it may have been somebody else. There is also evidence suggesting it was her.
There's evidence everywhere, but not enough evidence.
We have to have proof establishing our case beyond a reasonable doubt, and we simply do not. Kuntz was released from prison in late June of 2008. After she agreed to one final interview with Walnut Creek Police, federal authorities deported her to Scotland for committing, quote, a crime of moral turpitude. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had to look it up because I was like, what the fuck does that mean? It's kind of a squishy blanket term that can mean a lot of things, but judges can use it basically based on what happened. So if the immigration official or judge thinks the crime sounds morally wrong or perhaps mean and nasty, it's probably a crime of moral turpitude.
Okay.
Jewett said that Kuntz still could be brought back to the United States to face charges if more evidence materializes, but that as a practical matter, it becomes more difficult. Walnut Creek Police Sergeant Lanny Edwards, the lead investigator in the Garnier killing, said Kuntz's deportation adds to the complexity of the case, but does not doom it. I would rather she be here, Edwards said, noting that her deportation limits the number of future conversations we can have with her. He said that despite Jewett's reference to 2 other suspects, Kuntz remains the investigator's prime target. So that's kind of where it stands today. We don't even know where she is at this point.
So it's still an open case, and they still think that she either did it or knows who did it. But now she's in Scotland, so it's a lot more difficult to find her or speak to her, essentially.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
And there's so many theories of like how she could be involved with this, but everyone thinks that it definitely isn't related to the police. Because if the police did this, they didn't hire her. You know?
Well, yeah, vice is sticky. You know, there's a lot of gangs that force women into sex work. There's the mob. There's a ton of unsavory elements when you're in vice. So it doesn't even have to be police corruption. It could just be a bad guy who sent someone to do a bad thing.
Or like you said, she could have been hired to kill him
exactly.
for some reason. And that's what Robin from the Trail Went Cold thinks as well.
Yeah.
That there's a number of reasons she could have been involved. Or she could have been involved like because of sex work, like anything, like that's
a lot
separate from.
Yeah. It's interesting that his car was where it was. Like, did he get chased there and then have to stop and have an altercation, or why would he be parked there otherwise?
Right. Or because sometimes people did park in places like that to meet sex workers.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Right. So that would show that
she was a sex worker at that time.
And maybe he wasn't meeting her for nefarious purposes. Maybe he thought that she was going to give him information.
Totally.
Or something like that, you know, so she could have set him up that way.
Right. But everyone does think it's super strange that he didn't bring his weapons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he did receive 2 calls at his house before he left. His dad answered one of them, and it was a woman. But he didn't know anything about a Scottish accent, so
yeah, that's true.
It seems like you would.
And he was shot in his car?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I saw, because you had said the window was rolled down. You had listed some stuff about the car, so I was trying to think back and see if there was anything.
And it was it was a partial fingerprint. At the time, they didn't think they could do anything with it, which is crazy. Because now, of course, that would be included. And then her fingerprints were gotten in 91 or 92. It's a long, it basically, they had to investigate her for 6 years before they even brought her into this case.
Yeah, they investigated her before they even had her fingerprints.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So,
and as a sex worker, you would think that I guess she was just never arrested. Because when you get arrested as a sex worker, they take your fingerprints. You're arrested.
Yeah. Oh, I think there were multiple times that she was involved with things before that they didn't.
That's crazy.
So for Garnier's family, there has never been any closure. When Lester's body was first cremated, the family sat his ashes atop the television in the family room. Quote, "We talked to that box, even calling, 'It's time for dinner,' his sister said. I thought we were losing our minds. The dog waited for him every day. It just broke our heart."
No.
Garnier's parents were very consumed with finding the killer. His mom attended support group meetings for parents of murdered children, consulted psychics, and even hired a private investigator in attempts to solve the case. Jeez. Sadly, she died in 1996, and Lester's father died in 2002 with no answers.
Wow.
So there's so many more theories. I mean, there's theories about like race because he was Asian. There's a lot of stuff you can read about it if you would like to. I just could not include it all.
No.
Wow, I thought for sure once they said that they had found they had linked a woman to it, I thought for sure that there was going to be a solve.
Yeah.
You know?
So did I. I mean,
yeah, it's wild.
she was there, but we just don't know.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Good job, girl.
Yeah, love it.
Thank you.
So, this unexplained death segment is about Kathy Hobbs. Kathy Hobbs was a 16-year-old teenager living just 1 mile off the Strip of Las Vegas in a suburban area. She lived in an apartment with her mother, Vivian, and younger sister, Teresa. On the night of July 23rd, 1987, she was reading a novel in her bedroom when she decided to go down to the local supermarket to buy another book. I wanted to stop here to say I totally love this girl because I love that she's probably like, I'm almost done with this book and I have nothing else to read. I need to have it lined up.
Literally, it was late at night, too.
Yeah.
And
that was totally me.
Yeah,
Still is me.
Still is me, but definitely me at 11.
I'm just guessing that it was V.C. Andrews.
Oh, yeah, right.
They said a romance novel. Yeah. Okay. So walking to the store any time of day, even late at night like this, was not unusual for Kathy or the other kids that lived in her apartment complex. This store specifically was only 1.5 blocks away, and it was on the corner of Desert Inn Road and Maryland Parkway, in case we have any Las Vegas listeners that know where that is. So at 11, she kisses her mother goodnight and goes out to the apartment complex pool to see if there are any other kids hanging out that might want to join her, which is usually how Kathy would go to the store. So a lot of the kids would hang out at the pool, and often they'd like walk by to say, I'm going here. And then a kid would jump up and join whoever was leaving. It sounds like this area of Las Vegas was a bit of a low income area and kind of a rougher area. And so the kids probably were kids of a lot of single parents who just banded together and kept each other busy.
Yeah.
Her mother was not worried for her safety. She assumed that she would be with another kid, or at least one other kid going to the supermarket. But on this evening, no other teenagers were at the pool, so Kathy continued on to the supermarket on her own. Kathy's mother, Vivian, fell asleep thinking that Kathy was safe with at least one other teenager. And then at 3 a.m., she woke up from a startling dream. When she woke up, she felt like she had been hit on the head. And then right after, she had a very peaceful feeling, quote, like everything was over now. And then she went back to sleep.
So weird.
Yeah. So remember that. The next morning, she was horrified to realize that Kathy's bedroom was empty and she had not returned home from the night before. So Stack then tells us that Kathy's disappearance was an unfortunate culmination of years of worry. When Kathy was 8, she began to tell her friends that she would not live until the age of 16. Vivian, her mother, explains that Kathy did not have a happy childhood, and also when she was 8, her parents divorced, and Kathy had been very close with her father, so this was a really hard time for her. And then when Kathy was in 7th grade, she had a very good friend die of heart disease. So she just had a rough go.
Yeah. I mean, 8 is so young to even like have a concept of thinking about how you're going to die at all.
So some traumatic childhood events that clearly affected her. Then she and her mother moved to Las Vegas to try to give Kathy a new start at her childhood or teenagehood. And Kathy remained shy and a bit withdrawn in Las Vegas, but did begin to make new friends in the apartment building she lived in. But after a while, as her 16th birthday approached, Kathy's old fears began to resurface. She told her mother that she didn't want to get older and that she wanted to stay a little girl. Kathy became what Stat calls, quote, despondent, but clearly she has anxiety and depression.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit of obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yes.
Yeah.
But just, it's the 80s and her mom didn't have a lot of money, and there's not mental health awareness, especially for teenagers.
This story is sad for a lot of reasons, but one of them is that this young girl clearly had mental illness, and it was going unchecked.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
We have seen before that people who have had a bad childhood want to like stay in childhood because they just never had it.
Yeah. So before her 16th birthday, she spent all her time in her room and did not come out or socialize. But then on the morning of her birthday, she was happy to wake up and realize she was in fact alive. So it was a true fear for her. Like she thought for sure she was not going to make it. And then after Kathy awoke on the morning of her 16th birthday, she realized that maybe her fears were wrong and decided to put more thought into her future. She began to wear makeup and planned to study cosmetology and open a hair salon called Cat's Cuts. Yes, queen. I love it.
Cute.
And then 3 months and 3 days later, Kathy would go missing in the middle of the night. So after Kathy's disappearance, the local police assumed she had been abducted almost immediately. And they did a great job of like not assuming she ran away.
Yeah, good point.
They encouraged the media to circulate her picture as much as possible. They wanted someone to come forward. They knew that time was of the essence for sure in this case. So that was good to see because we don't see that with a lot of teenage girls that leave. Often police think she went ran away.
Off.
Especially in her case where she was depressed and,
Yeah, you could see, So eventually a clerk at the supermarket that Kathy went to purchase her book from remembered seeing her the night she disappeared. And then they looked at store receipts, and this confirmed that someone had bought a paperback book at 11:17 p.m. on that night, and this would line up with her timeline of leaving the house around 11. This confirmed that Kathy did make it to the store, and her abduction must have taken place after purchasing the book and leaving. So Lieutenant Kyle Edwards of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police, who's one of the police officers that worked on Kathy's case, explains that Las Vegas is a 24-hour town, a city that never sleeps, so very similar to New York, maybe even more so. He says it's not unusual for there to be heavy traffic and lots of people around, even outside the Strip in the middle of the night. People are going to work, coming home from work. It's just like, it's not a normal scheduled city.
Yeah, and I was thinking, like, that's amazing that person was able to remember that she came in and bought that. Because
Right.
it's not like it was super slow at that time.
Yeah, totally. The store she went to was a generally busy store, and he says they were surprised when no one else came forward to say they saw Kathy around the store at that time. So 9 days after Kathy's disappearance, a hiker and some say geologist, but UM didn't say this, named Rick Picoult was in the desert near Lake Mead searching for unique rock crystals. And like, especially in LA and Portland, crystals is such a thing now. So it was so funny to hear like he's looking for crystals, but he's wearing a football jersey.
because he's like a geologist.
Yeah, he's a rock
It's
hound.
just not what we think of as crystal people nowadays. So, and then Lake Mead, where he was looking, is about an hour away from Las Vegas. So after not finding much in the way of rocks, Rick began to walk back to his car and was struck by a very strong odor. He decided to go see what it was and found the remains of 16-year-old Kathy Hobbs. He says, quote, "It was the most horrible thing I'd ever seen in my life. I had to sit down to gather my thoughts and make sure that what I was looking at was real."
It's awful.
It's so awful. He then made his way quickly to the Colville Bay Ranger Station and brought the rangers out to the site where Kathy had been dumped. Who knows when this girl would have been found had he not been out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing about that area.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Or if she had been in a different state of decomposition, he might not have smelled anything.
Yeah.
Right.
So
It would have been the
horrible to
different-
say,
yeah.
but like he couldn't see her from his car. He went to look because he smelled something.
Yeah.
It could have been the difference of like 6 days.
Yeah, truly. So Lieutenant Edwards, who we heard from before, came to the scene and knew almost immediately that it was Kathy. He says, quote, Your immediate feeling is to want to run home, grab your daughter by the arm, and bring her to the scene and say, "This is why I say, no, you can't go out late at night."
Yeah.
I didn't like that very much. I thought he could have said that warning in a much more tactful way without using Kathy's body as a bad example.
Yeah, that was
I thought that
kind
was
of
very
an insensitive
cold.
thing, but
She
I
was
get it.
walking to the store to buy a book.
Right.
She
Yeah.
wasn't out like
Right. Yeah,
it
running
could be
wild.
totally.
You know?
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, and a lot of people blame the mom, and we should not be doing that. This
No.
was a different time.
Exactly.
That mom has enough to deal with.
My initial reaction when they said it was 11 p.m. and she was going, my reaction was, whoa, this is Vegas. You know,
Yeah.
Most of the areas outside of Vegas, especially at that time, were not safe.
Right.
But
Oh, yeah, of course. Now we think
that's how we think now.
And the mom
And there were
assumed she
usually
was
kids
going
there.
with someone else.
Yeah, because
I'm
generally
sure it
there were
wasn't
kids,
that
you know.
common for her to normally go that late.
No.
You know, she just probably didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so unnecessary for people on Reddit to be like, why would this mom do this? Of course she thinks that now.
Of course,
No one
yeah.
needs to point it out.
No. Yeah, if you don't think she thinks about that every day,
Yeah.
she's thinking about it way
Yeah.
more than anybody on Reddit.
Yeah,
you know?
she doesn't need people to remind her.
Yeah.
So around Kathy's body, there were tire tracks found where a car had clearly turned around and gotten back on the road, as well as 2 rocks found with blood on them. And after forensic testing, the stains on the rocks came back as a match for Kathy's blood type. So Kathy's cause of death was ruled to be repeated blows to the head, probably with the rocks.
Which explains why the guy was so horrified, because he didn't really explain what he saw
Right.
when he found her.
Yeah.
He was just like kind of dumbfounded
And
and
that's why
speechless
he
about
had
it.
to like sit and make
Yeah.
sure what he was seeing.
Yeah, they say
because
he sat down.
her head.
Yeah.
And she had been sexually assaulted. They don't say how her clothes were found, but
Oh, did they say that in UM?
no.
They didn't say that.
Okay,
No.
because I was
Yeah.
wondering that.
And I don't know if they just, I guess we haven't really, have we seen sexual assault cases in UM yet where like,
I don't
I'll get
think
into
they've
it,
called
but
it
the
out.
person they think it is was a serial rapist and his victims were always found with their pants down. And I couldn't find if hers were or not.
Okay.
But yeah, sources say she had been sexually assaulted. But I wonder if UM just couldn't go there yet, or
I don't think so.
and I guess they don't really need to say that detail, like in the show. All they want is to know who killed her.
And the person who killed her knows that they raped her, and the
Yeah.
police knows. So like,
But
it's
if
not
someone
necess-
knows something, that's
Yeah,
kind of a crucial
I know.
detail.
I thought about that. I don't know. So after she died, her mother found letters in Kathy's room addressed to each member of her family. The letters were dated 1 month prior to her 16th birthday, when Kathy was in like the darkest place of her life, thinking she wasn't going to live. She had thought she was going to die before 16, but she ended up making it there, but not long after. So here is Kathy's mom reading the letter Kathy wrote to her.
Dear Mother, in event of my death, you shall get this letter. I hope you live happily, and I don't want you or anyone else to dwell on my death. I love you all very dearly. You were good to me, and nobody else could have been a better mother. Keep me alive in your heart, and don't ever forget me. Love always, Kathy. And she was a very good friend, as well as being my daughter.
And she wrote that like 2 months before she died.
Yeah, like 4
it was
months.
fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On October 24th, 3 months after Kathy's disappearance, an answering machine at the Las Vegas Police Department recorded a phone call that a potential witness to Kathy's abduction left. So someone didn't pick up the phone. This person just left a voicemail. He says that a man, quote, grabbed this girl in front of the store on Desert Inn in Maryland. This is a few months ago. I've been out of town for a few months, and I wrote this down because she was screaming, and they pulled her in the car.
Are you serious?
She was a very young girl wearing a white jacket and pink pants, and the guy's name, he hollered to him, push her in the car, and his name was Robbie.
Why
I was enraged.
I know. Same.
do you not want to get
I've been
involved?
out of town, so I've been busy.
But
What the
I
fuck?
cared enough to write it down before I went out of town.
But I
then
didn't
I'm
call
just
a lot
now
of
calling.
details.
But I didn't call the police immediately because I was watching someone literally abduct a child.
Right.
Really?
And it's not like one of those ones where you're like, I'm not sure if they're family
I don't
and
wanna
I
get
just don't want to get
involved.
involved. She was screaming bloody murder.
As they're
Like,
dragging her into a car. Even if they are family, you should still call the police.
Yes. So annoying.
Of course.
You don't manhandle anybody like that.
So to me, the voicemail is not credible. Like, who the fuck would do that?
Yeah.
And then if you didn't care enough to call 2 months before, why would you suddenly call?
You've been out of the...
And why would you not leave your contact information?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it doesn't seem credible. Everything, all the information he gave was public. What she was wearing, the store she had been at. Like, he doesn't give any new information that the police hadn't released. He only gives information.
Also, wouldn't you have
real.
this, like, wouldn't you have the presence of mind to write the license plate down?
So he did. He says he did, and he gives them the license plate number.
That's right.
But it doesn't exist. It's not matched to a car.
Yeah.
But still, this is like literally all the police have. So from the voicemail, they develop a theory that potentially there were two men who worked together to abduct Kathy in the parking lot of the store, and one of them was named Robbie. And that maybe the car they were driving, which he doesn't say like the color or the make or model, he only gives this license plate number, which is not linked to any car, but that maybe it was off by one number or one letter.
Right.
So part of the plea from UM is the Las Vegas police are asking this witness to call in, and they play the actual recording on the episode. So perhaps someone who knows the caller would identify him for police through hearing his voice, or just he will realize if this is true, you need to call back and give more information. However, the caller never contacted the police again, and no one identified him even after the UM airing. So this segment closes out with Vivian in tears saying, "Someone out there is walking the streets killing kids, and they killed my daughter, and before they can kill someone else's daughter, I want them caught." So I'm going to do snaps for Grandma.
Oh, yes.
I feel like her grandma would have been more like...
Yeah. Yeah, like, it's not poetry snaps.
It's not poetry snaps. It's shut up. It's an update snap.
Shut the fuck up.
Update snap. Yeah. So the very short update on UM that they added later is that Michael Lee Lockhart became a prime suspect in Kathy's murder, and Lockhart has since been executed. That's all they say.
Yeah.
So here's my update. So who is Michael Lee Lockhart? Well, they are using his middle name, so you know that can't be good, because that's something they only reserve for serial killers. So I'm going to give some information on Michael Lee Lockhart about his convicted killings and then his possible link to Kathy Hobbs, but we have like other segments to do. If you want to know more about him, True Crime All the Time is a true crime podcast, and they have an episode on him that's very in-depth, but because of time, I just can't go into everything. If you're interested, go there. It's episode 61 of True Crime All the Time, and I had never listened to them, but I have to say they were incredibly respectful of the victims of Michael Lee Lockhart, which I'll talk about. And that is just not something that everyone in the true crime podcasting game is being or doing, especially big true crime podcasts run by men. Sorry, you can cut this if you want to, but I'm getting a little tired of it. They were so respectful, and I was worried, and I was pleasantly surprised, and I will keep listening to them.
That's awesome.
That's good of you to call out.
And then there's also a book about Michael Lee Lockhart called A Perfect Gentleman, and that's written by J. Slade Fletcher, if you're interested. Okay, here we go. So Michael Lee Lockhart spent most of his time in Ohio until about 1984, at the age of 24, when he became very unhappy and started using drugs and alcohol. At this time, he had a wife and young daughter. Michael was in and out of jail a few times between 84 and 87 for things like stealing cars and drug possession. Jail clearly never worked for him, because they kept letting him out. And in May of 1987, so remember this is the same year that Kathy Hobbs was murdered. She was murdered in July. In May, Michael stole a 1986 blue Toyota Celica from a woman in Georgia. So he committed crimes around this time. I'm going to go into some of his more violent crimes that he's eventually actually convicted of. So Michael became somewhat of a drifter in the coming months after stealing the car. The first convicted violent crime of his after stealing the car took place in October of that year. Remember, Kathy was murdered in July. In August, he robbed a home in Elyria, Ohio. And during that robbery, he stole money and a pistol. Then on October 12th, 1987, Michael drove to Chicago and attempted to rape a woman there. The woman reported it and gave a description matching Michael, as well as matching the blue Toyota Celica he was driving. The very next day, on October 13th, 1987, he went to Griffith, Indiana. So from Chicago, he goes to Indiana. Christine Gallagher had just gotten home from a busy day. After being home for a while, she went to check on her sister, Wendy, at about 7 p.m. This is fairly gruesome, so just be ready to skip forward if you want to. So as Christine opened the door to 16-year-old Wendy Gallagher's room, she saw her sister's partially nude body lying on her bed. Wendy had been stabbed 21 times, and her hands were bound behind her. Jesus. She had been stabbed so many times that her intestines were hanging out, and she was disemboweled.
Oh, my God.
Wendy's purse was missing from her room, along with a photo. So police were able to find a fingerprint, which belonged to the killer, but outside of that, there was little to go on. And this is confusing because he has been in and out of jail. So I don't know if they didn't run the fingerprint through a national system, if they just did it in the state.
There was no national
There was no
system.
CODIS?
There was no CODIS, honey.
No CODIS, for sure.
Not back then.
But fingerprints?
But fingerprints, yes. So they ran it through a state system, probably. They had to have. Why were they taking fingerprints otherwise?
But you're saying ran as if there's some sort of computer machination.
Yeah.
No, there's not. True. It's people going through files. And then it's human beings comparing the fingerprints.
So they knew, and they knew it was the killer's because it didn't belong to the family. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, there was nothing. There was no running.
Yeah,
you're
right.
There was no CODIS. There were human beings, and human beings are fallible.
Yeah. So later in interviews, Michael told police that he was able to enter the Gallagher home by asking Wendy if he could use her telephone.
What?
Yeah.
No.
But they don't have him yet. So after the murder in Indiana, Michael fled back to Ohio. On November 7th, just 3 weeks after killing Wendy, Michael bound and gagged his estranged wife, Janet, and sexually assaulted her, torturing her for 2 days.
Oh, my God.
Holy shit.
Then Michael fled the area and continued drifting from state to state. He was still driving the blue Toyota Celica, but eventually dumped it and stole a red Corvette on November 16th, 1987.
That'll keep you under the radar.
And he stole this red Corvette by asking a dealership if he could test drive it. The guy that worked at the dealership went with him, and then when they were on the highway, he pulled a gun on him and said, "I'm taking your wallet and you have to get out." So he didn't kill him, but that's how he took it.
Wow.
So, and then Lockhart also stole license plates while traveling through St. Louis, Missouri to help conceal the stolen vehicle so it wouldn't have its same plates. Michael made his way to Florida, where on January 12th, he robbed a Payless Shoes in Jacksonville. And then less than a week later, January 20th, 1988, he entered the home of 14-year-old Jennifer Calhour, asking to use her phone like he did with Wendy Gallagher. A while later, Jennifer's 8-year-old brother came home. No. He needed to just run to his bedroom to grab something for soccer practice, and I think like his dad and other sister were waiting in the car, waiting downstairs.
Oh my God.
When he entered his bedroom, he discovered the partially nude body of his 14-year-old sister, Jennifer. Like Wendy Gallagher, Calhour was bound and had been disemboweled.
Oh, my God.
There were also signs of strangulation on the neck, and Lockhart would later comment in an interview that he simply woke up that morning and thought to himself, quote, "I had to go out and get me one." He's fucking evil. I don't know how people don't talk about him more.
Yeah. He's definitely one of the ones that
He's awful.
Well, and it's
people don't know about.
Clearly none of these were rage killings because he's going so above and beyond.
Yes, no. There's nothing rage killing about this. This is definitely a serial killer.
So Michael next traveled to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where he robbed a bank on March 21st. The next day, on March 22nd, he went to Beaumont, Texas. He just can't stop. It's not only that he can't stop killing.
He can't stop
doing stupid crimes.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Yeah. He's an equal opportunity criminal.
Yeah.
Just anything and everything.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is his last official murder. He's in Texas, remember this. So local police officer Paul Hulsey Jr. saw a red Corvette with out-of-state plates, and it was in the company of a known drug dealer. So he ran those plates, because it's also like a brand new Corvette. You're going to run that and see, if it's possibly stolen, and the car came back as stolen. So this seems suspicious to Hulsey, obviously, so he attempted to stop the driver and speak with him. But when he attempted to stop the Corvette, it took off, and Hulsey was unable to keep up as he chased it. And then a few hours later, while patrolling the area, Hulsey found the red Corvette in a hotel parking lot. Pick a less obvious car. A brand new red Corvette.
Also, park it in a hotel and then go to another hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, the town couldn't have been that big.
So he went to the front desk to find out which room the man who had the red Corvette was staying in. And he called for backup, but backup was busy dealing with something else terrible that had happened in the area. No. So they could not come. So he made the decision to confront the criminal before he could get away again. So things quickly escalated as Halsey attempted to apprehend Michael Lee Lockhart. He had Michael place his hands on the wall while he attempted to take control. And it's hard to tell exactly what happened, but somehow in a struggle, Lockhart was able to get Halsey's gun from him and shoot him twice.
No. Oh, my God.
And he killed him.
Wow.
So Officer Paul Halsey was 30 years old, had been on the force for 8 years. He left behind a wife, 2 very young daughters, and both of his parents. Michael then fled the scene in the Corvette, but he soon abandoned it, asked someone to give him a ride, and then he rode with someone and then was able to hire a cab. But the police were on his trail, and they pulled the cab over and were able to arrest him. And thankfully, he didn't, kill the cab driver. Yeah. I mean, he could have killed so many other people.
Totally.
So it was very obvious that Michael had killed the officer, and he killed a policeman in Texas. So
goodbye.
But eventually they were also able to tie him to first a woman's purse who he had stolen in Chicago. This eventually led to the connection in the other 2 murders. Once they started finding things out about him, he couldn't stop talking and claimed that he had killed over 24 victims. But he soon retracted his statement, as you do when your lawyer gets a hold of you. So he would eventually claim responsibility only for the 3 murders of Wendy Gallagher, Jennifer Calhoun, and Officer Halsey. While in trial, however, Michael had other plans. He attempted to escape on August 18th, 1988, by diving out a window.
That only worked for Bundy.
And he didn't get far. Eventually, the trial commenced, and he was charged in the death of Officer Halsey and sentenced to death because he killed a police officer in Texas. Good luck.
Wow.
He died by lethal injection on December 9th, 1997.
Bye.
Okay, so how does Michael become a prime suspect in Kathy's murder?
Yeah, I was thinking about the timeline.
Yeah. So,
and the scene is not the same.
It's not. So there isn't a lot of information out there on how he's tied to it, but basically there were blue fibers found at the scene of Kathy's body that UM didn't talk about. And it's unclear how police initially suspected Michael, but the Toyota Celica that he had stolen in May of 87 and was driving until November of 87 had blue fibers that matched the fibers that were found at the scene.
Okay.
Then credit card receipts also placed him in Las Vegas at the time of the murder, which was in July. So people think his, first violent killing took place in October with Wendy Gallagher's murder, but possibly it started way sooner and we just didn't, they didn't know.
Yeah. It started way sooner with Kathy.
Right. And maybe even before.
And maybe that's why the MO was different, because he was escalating.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Yes.
His other cases weren't as gruesome or whatever.
Yeah. So, and then finally when investigators questioned him about Kathy's case, he, quote, virtually confessed to the crime. But I am just not convinced that this should be enough to close a case. He was never convicted of killing her. Because Lockhart was convicted of 3 other murders and then was executed in Texas, Nevada decided to not pursue prosecution of him.
Yeah. That isn't very uncommon.
It's not, but fiber evidence and a few receipts is not enough to close a case. There could still be a killer out there. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, I mean, people, of course, it's not that uncommon because it costs money. It puts the family through, undue hardship by having them hear about what potentially happened to their family member that died. But that's not okay. If it were DNA evidence, I would understand that.
Yeah.
Fibers, no. And now we know fiber evidence is definitely not enough to convict someone.
Yeah, you're right.
So why would they ever close a case? It's closed. They think it's him.
What year did they close it?
I don't know. I couldn't find that. It's very weird. It's a weird case. Mm-hmm. You would think there'd be so much more out there about it.
You know what? It could be something like Otis Toole, that kind of thing, where Henry Lee Lucas, where once they started talking, police officers were eager to put a lot of crimes on them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it could have been something where this guy started talking and suddenly you have police officers coming in and detectives coming in from all these different states saying, you were here at this time. Did you kill this girl? So it could be that,
right.
You know?
Totally.
I don't know. To me, it seems reckless for them to just be like, no, it's fine. it's him. They don't know that for sure. If this were his only crime, they would have had to take him to trial.
And he
would not have been convicted, most likely, unless a jury.
I don't even know if they would have taken him to trial.
Exactly. They
fiber.
don't have enough.
No.
And maybe they used fiber more then than they do now, but I don't know.
They did. Because they didn't have anything
DNA.
else. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, they also used blood type. Like,
yeah.
Secretor, non-secretor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's it. In my opinion, Kathy Hobbs' murder is still technically unsolved, and her family never received the justice they deserved.
Do you know how her mother felt about it? Do you know if her mother...
No, there's nothing like that. I found her mother and her sister on Facebook, but I didn't want to contact them. Sure. It just seems not right. Mm-hmm. But they seem happy. They have, and they're not posting things we don't like to see on Facebook, which is I was very happy to see.
That's a nice way to say that.
For that area too.
Both of them. So I was very happy to see that she has not made any comments that I could find since.
I was wondering if the mom was like, okay, I'm satisfied.
I know.
Or
right.
she didn't think so
I know.
either.
I wondered that too. I almost asked her, but I just thought I don't.
Yeah. The only way I think the only way it's okay to ask is if it's Michaela Joy's mother, where she's so active and she's like obviously willing to have a discourse about her child.
Exactly.
So I think you did the right thing.
Yeah. So Kathy's death was obviously horrible, and my heart goes out to her family and the families of Wendy Gallagher, Jennifer Calhour, and Officer Halsey, whose daughters were on some segment that True Crime All the Time played audio of one of his daughters talking, and how she was afraid that she said like it was fine to have Michael Lee Lockhart locked up, but then in her kid brain, she was afraid that he would tell another criminal, I'm in jail because of I killed this officer, and then another criminal would come and kill her family. She just had to live in that fear too. So
it's terrible.
It's awful. But yeah, that's Kathy Hobbs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the third segment is A Lost Love, and it is the story of Bill Purinton, or Purinton?
I swear they said Purinton in the segment.
All right, well, I have to pick one and commit.
Yeah,
I would say Purinton.
Purinton. Okay.
Look at this. This is so tiny.
I know, because my hair is baby hair.
I'm looking at a tiny blonde
bobby pin.
Have you seen these?
Yes, and it cracks me up that there's blonde bobby pins.
Oh, well, we must have that, but I've never had a tiny.
Well, because you have gorgeous, thick hair, and I have sad baby hair.
All right.
The tinies. Okay.
This has nothing to do with Bill. He had fabulous hair. Okay, so this is the Lost Love segment, and it is the story of Bill Purinton and his search for his sister Jackie. Bill Purinton, a 65-year-old retired New Hampshire businessman, was separated from his family in 1934 when he was 8. Bill was one of 6 who stayed at a home while their parents were working. So there were 6 children in the home, and the parents were not around. They were very, I can't say poor, right? They were
I think they say that in the episode. They're poor.
The show says they were poor.
Financially challenged.
Yeah, I don't like the word poor, but I don't know what else to say. So in the reenactment, they show the children throwing a birthday party for 2 of the siblings.
Which,
go ahead.
I mean, that just goes to show how much the parents were not there. Because they were like, now it's time to do the birthday party. Mm-hmm. Like the older siblings were the ones that like made the cake and like brought it out.
Yeah. And their parents are working, and also women don't have access to birth control at that time.
No. Yeah. And they won't again if we keep going in this trajectory. So apparently the neighbors had reported the family to the Society of the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. They had said that the children were neglected. They were always home by themselves, that the parents were never around. So sadly, while these children are celebrating this birthday party, and it looked like a legit birthday party, the people who work for the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children showed up. They took the children, but Robert Stack makes sure to tell us that they allowed the children to celebrate the birthday party first.
And then they're creepily standing behind the kids.
Yeah, the reenactment was bizarre. Like, I want to know if that timing is actually real. Mm-hmm. Or if it was just done for the drama.
Yeah. Also, one of my questions was how old was the oldest child in the household? Not to say that a 12-year-old can look after 5 children, but back then, a 12-year-old
for sure
would have.
Yeah. So
he was the youngest at 8, right?
He was the No, he was not the youngest.
He was the oldest of the 4 kids.
He
that
was
were
the oldest
taken.
of the 4 children that were taken.
So yeah,
correct.
probably 12.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
11 or 12, like where, okay, that isn't responsible by any means. However, I don't think that it was that rare. I think an 11 or 12-year-old, the eldest in the household, was generally just another parent back then.
I agree. It was just so odd because they just show them just walking in, like unannounced, and like it's so weird. They just watch the birthday party happen.
Yeah.
It's really creepy.
So Bill was the oldest of the 4 that were taken. And he says at first he was excited because he was going to go on a train and in a car and see things he hadn't seen before. He says when he realized he wasn't going home, he became angry. And they left. In the reenactment, they leave 2 girls behind that are standing in the street, like kind of waving and sad.
So sad.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's cruel. Society of Prevention of Cruelty to Children is literally they're dragging the kids away.
Yeah, that's a little cruel.
And apparently did not explain to them what they were doing.
Nope. And also didn't bother to notify the parents.
But like we talked about, this is like in the late 30s, but they didn't treat
it
kids.
had to have been in the 30s.
It's like orphan trains. Like they didn't respect kids. They didn't need to tell them what was happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
And
I guess the parents who are of a certain income level.
Right.
And was there like an age cutoff? Like, why did they not take the 2 older ones?
Maybe they thought
clearly still kids.
Parents can handle 2, but they can't take care of these 6 or something.
Yeah.
So
Or they can
bizarre.
handle the 2 eldest who are essentially behaving like adults anyway. I don't know.
So awful.
Bill and his 3 younger siblings were adopted. They went to 3 different homes in the state of New York, and it would be 50 years before they saw each other again. In 1948, when Bill was 22 and just out of the Army, he began to search for his brothers and sisters. In 1976, he wrote to the records clerk in Hartwick, New York. Just as the clerk was replying to Bill's letter, a chance visitor walked by. She said she knew the person in the image. She said that the woman who was his mother moved out to San Francisco and that she lives right near her daughter. The woman provided the address, and Bill wrote to it. The show says he received a cautious reply from Wanda, his sister. She said if Bill called her, she could provide information. Bill called her, and Wanda asked him, quote, "Are you Ed or are you Bill?" He said, "I'm Bill," and she started to cry. I was thinking, they said that Wanda's response was cautious, and I wonder why. I don't know if she had people claim to be her family who weren't, or if just the time it was strange to have someone try to find you.
Yeah.
Or, we live in a day and age where you put your DNA into a computer system and you find a million cousins.
Right.
But I guess back then it was probably a taboo thing to even go looking.
Yeah, and I think she was only told it's your brother.
Yeah.
'Cause she had to ask who it was.
Good for
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
She's
So,
not trusting everyone right away.
yeah. By 1979, Bill had tracked down all of his brothers and sisters except for 2. Jackie, who had shared his birthday, and Ed, the baby brother. Bill says the feeling that you had a brother or sister somewhere that you can't locate is the driving force. It makes you want to keep on looking, and you don't give up. In 1980, Helen Steinman of the New York Children's Aid Society, which is...
I know.
I know,
Yes,
honey.
I noted that too.
Found a phone number for Bill. On Christmas Eve, Bill spoke to Ed for the first time.
so nice.
I know, in 47 years. Ed Orvis, Bill's brother, says with one phone call, he suddenly had 42 new relatives. It was the greatest Christmas gift he could get.
Ugh, it's too nice.
The family reunited
Oh, no.
the first time. And
I can't.
What?
This or not even reenactment. It's real.
Yeah, them showing up, and I know
The
it.
reunion.
I know, it's so sweet. The family reunited, and it was the first time they had been together in more than 50 years. It is so adorable.
It's literally the happiest thing we've ever seen on UN.
Yeah.
They are all so happy. The editing is fantastic, too, because it goes back and forth between the reunion and the reenactment. So that adds like a heightened emotional level as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really well done, and it was so sweet. And
Yeah.
I
And they're
mean,
just literally
they're
like
overjoyed.
running into each other's arms,
Yeah.
embracing. It's so sad and sweet.
Yeah.
We will post it on our Instagram, or we will have already posted it if we use it as our teaser.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to do that.
I think we have to.
However, their sister Jackie still remains missing. Ed says, when we find Jackie, it will be a complete circle. Everything will be in its place. Everyone will be where they belong. Bill says, I've been looking for my sister for the last 40 years, and I intend to find her. I'm not going to stop until I do.
Love him.
So the show update tells us that a local historian in upstate New York connected Bill Purinton with his sister Jackie. She has since met her siblings.
Yay.
Yeah. This is fairly straightforward, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of additional information. I read an article that was written right after this segment was filmed, but before it aired. In the episode, Doug Purinton portrays his father during the 1930s. He was picked because of his resemblance to his father. Quote, the show likes to use family members in these programs if they can, and it was cheaper for the producers to use me for the part instead of hiring an actor, Purinton says.
Wow.
Quote, the best part of doing the show was knowing that I'm helping my father. Doug Purinton stars in the show for about a minute with 2 lines and 3 scenes. So cute. They wrote a whole newspaper article about it.
Aww.
Yeah, like the local paper.
I remember the parents even being in there.
It says he portrayed his father as he started to search for his family.
Oh, wait.
And is shown writing letters and searching for his family.
He's portraying Bill.
Yeah.
Not Bill's parents.
Yeah, he's portraying Bill.
Yeah, so he's portraying Bill when he's sitting down at the desk right after he got out of the army, I think. Starting to look for his family.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He portrays his father.
Okay, that's interesting because I actually wondered, I wonder who that is because he looks kind of like him, but it's clearly not him because he's supposed to be way younger.
Yeah, it was his son.
Oh,
which is
that's
so cute.
fun. I love that.
So, yeah, he was in the show for about a minute with 2 lines and 3 scenes. He portrays his father as he started the search for his family and is shown writing letters, searching for his family, driving a truck to take the letters to the post office, and receiving a rejection letter. Oh. It took 15 takes to do one of the scenes and 20 to do the other one, he said.
That's TV, baby.
Can relate.
Yeah, we know what that's like. What is this, the 8th time we've done this segment, you guys? Sometimes
thank God
true.
It's not.
Yeah, really. Doug says, I had fun doing it, but I would not want to leave Spartanburg to work for Hollywood. I know.
I got my taste.
They're like, no one's asking you to, honey.
Meanwhile, he's driving like a Corvette. He's doing a ton of cocaine. He's like on a phone, like a giant 80s
wearing
phone.
Mirror sunglasses.
Yeah, wearing mirrored sunglasses. He's like, it hasn't changed me at all. The show was filmed at Doug Purinton's biological grandparents' home in Hardwick. It took 5 days to film while Bill Purinton of Nottingham, New Hampshire, and several of his siblings watched. Quote, I enjoyed being with my father, aunts, and uncles, Doug said. I've only known my aunts and uncles on my mother's side, but now I'm getting to know my father's brothers and sisters. So sweet.
It's too nice.
I know.
So nice.
He said taping the show also helped him better understand what life had been like for his father. I've always known my 4 siblings, but it took almost 40 years for my father to know his, he said. Quote, I'm hoping that Jackie or someone who knows her will see the show.
That's so great. Where'd you find that article? Because I want to look them up now for
I'll link to it.
all our episodes.
Yeah.
Like just to see if anyone else has.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I Googled because I was like, I'm not going to.
There's nothing else.
There's nothing else to say.
Yeah.
It's a Lost Love segment. And then I found this and
I love
it was
that.
very sweet. Doug finishes by saying, producers of the show thought it would be a refreshing change to get away from all these unsolved murder programs.
We agree.
Oh, yes.
Meanwhile, I'm like, I'm so bored with my Lost Love segment. I'm just
enjoy basically the week off.
I know. I was like, oh my God, I'm done already.
You
like,
always get the crazy.
Why am I not maniacally like in a rabbit hole pulling my hair out, chugging coffee at 4:00 in the morning?
That was me this time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry. So these are, and here's a little bit more information that I found from another article. Apparently, every foster home that took Bill sent him back to the orphanage because of his bad behavior.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Quote, I was quite angry at the time, he said. Yep. I made up my mind that if my parents didn't want me, which probably was not true, but probably what he was told, no one else was going to get me. Yep. So I gave everyone a hard time. Aww. At the time, I think his name was Howard Harrington, which is...
Yeah, they said Harrington.
So he was born Howard Harrington, which is funny because the last name's Purinton.
Yeah.
So with this article, they kept referring to him as Howard, and I went back because I was looking.
You're like, who's Howard?
I'm like, which one's Howard?
Yeah.
Is this about another sibling?
Wait, what? So did his adopted name become Bill Purinton?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They changed his first name
I didn't realize they changed his first name.
Yeah, and I have information about that too.
Oh my God.
Even that's like a little wacky. Howard/Bill had just finished another session with the orphanage's psychologist when he met a man and a woman, Norman and Diane Purinton. They were there to adopt a little girl, but the deal fell through, so they took Howard for a ride along Fifth Avenue in New York in an open-top bus. Oh my God, it's like Annie.
It is.
Oh my God.
So they went to a restaurant where Howard devoured a plate of liver and onions.
What?
Oh my.
That was the deciding factor, he would learn 40 years later. Quote, my dad said, any kid who can eat that stuff can't be bad, Bill said. Yeah.
It was probably like the best thing he'd eaten.
Yeah. I mean, I think, would they eat porridge? I don't know. I've only ever seen Annie and Oliver. I don't know.
It's just all porridge.
Those are
all
the only
time.
movies we let you watch.
Yeah, it's just gruel all of the time. So even the evolution of Bill's name is interesting. Like I said, he was born Howard Harrington, but in 1937, within a year of meeting the Purintons, Howard became Wilson Howard Purinton. But so Bill's adopted father called him Willie for short. Before he was adopted, his adopted mother, who was an actress and singer in New York, had hosted a radio show about adopting older children called My Son Bill.
What?
Everyone assumed that Willie was Bill, so Willie became Bill.
Okay.
So his name was Howard Harrington. When he was adopted, it was changed to Wilson Howard Purinton. And then, because this woman had a show about adopting children called My Son Bill, everyone assumed that he was the Bill she was talking about.
Right.
But she hadn't even adopted him yet. So everyone just called him Bill. So then he became Bill Purinton.
Wow.
What?
Isn't that crazy?
See, you're always able to find things.
Thankfully, he was the one looking for the other siblings because they would have never found him.
No.
Yeah, so
Because
did
God
all
knows
the
what his name
siblings-
actually is.
Did all the siblings still keep their names? Obviously, except for their last one.
They did not, no. So Bill ended up having... He grew up, he got married, he had 6 children himself. The first child, who was a girl, died with health problems when she was 4 months old. In 1952, he had a son, Douglas, who portrayed him on UM. Then he had another son, Stephen. Stephen died in an automobile accident in 1988. They had a son, Bradley, who at the time in 2004 worked at a kayak company. Another son, Gary, who was a physical therapist, and a daughter, Karlin, who was a reading teacher in Georgia.
Wow.
Of the letter correspondence, I remember thinking it was strange that he wrote to the mother, but the sister called. Why didn't the mother call? And he said of the letter correspondence with his mother after he found her and his sister, he said, I wasn't sure if she wanted to find us as much as I wanted to find her. So I think maybe, and probably for her, this was such a traumatic event. And at the time, she was elderly. Who knows if she wanted to even relive all of this trauma.
Can't you even imagine?
And she probably had a bunch of guilt that she shouldn't have had.
Yeah, it gets sadder. So we found his mother living in California in 1977, but she died shortly before their scheduled meeting.
No.
Within 3 months of their first talking and the plan that he had to go visit. She did not live to see him. But Bill says, I had mixed emotions about whether I wanted to see her. If you haven't seen someone in more than 60 years, you weren't sure how to react.
And she had 60 years to reach out and try to find him.
Yeah. And Bill's father had died in 1955, which was something he didn't know. So Bill knew where his sister attended high school and nursing school, but after a divorce in the 50s, she seemingly vanished without a trace.
This is Jackie?
Yeah. So apparently I found out there were 12 Harrington children altogether.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I don't know what the household situation was at the time.
Wow.
Also, the reenactment wasn't entirely truthful. There was not a birthday party going on. The scene is even more heartbreaking.
I knew it.
The people from the State Charities Association came to collect the 4 youngest Purinton children, Bill being the eldest of those 4. Before Bill and his 2 younger sisters and brother got in the car, their older sister Wanda insisted they gather to celebrate Howard and his younger sister Jackie's birthdays. Howard and Jackie were only a year apart, and their birthdays were on August 23rd and August 24th. Wanda ran inside and brought back a pie crust. They placed it on the hood of the car.
Okay.
I'm literally crying. I can't.
Yeah. They placed it on the hood of the car and broke it into pieces to share. There was no cake,
No, I can't.
no happy birthday song, just a broken up pie crust.
Fucking UM. That makes me so mad.
I mean, I guess I didn't want to bum everybody out too much. That's a really fucking sad scene.
Or put a bad name on the fucking organization that took them.
Yeah.
That's awful.
So they
Oh my
weren't
God.
they weren't politely standing waiting for they
Ew, I
weren't
hate
even going to
them.
let them have the birthday party that they were supposed to have. So after the broadcast, several tips came in, most from people who claimed to have known and gone to school with Jackie in the 40s and 50s. Some claimed that she had married and adopted 2 children. Somebody claimed that she died. However, the tipsters did not know of Jackie's present whereabouts. The story was shown several times, but Jackie didn't watch the show and never knew her brother was searching for her. Nearly a decade went by. In 1997, Jackie and her husband were on a trip to Boston when they had a delay in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Her husband suggested they rent a car and drive around because he had never seen upstate New York. While driving, they saw a sign to Hartwick, and Jackie's husband asked if she'd like to drive by and see her old home.
Oh my gosh.
They went to the post office and got directions to the old Harrington place. They got lost and stopped at a house to ask for help. The girl who lived there didn't know anything about Harrington's history, but she directed them to a man in the neighborhood who had lived there all his life. Immediately, the elderly man recognized her name and told her that her brother had been looking for her on the television show Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh my gosh.
Chills.
Such a chance thing.
Mm-hmm. Quote, she was completely taken aback. She had no idea anyone was looking for her. She just thought everyone had disappeared from the face of the earth, Bill said.
God.
The town historian, who Bill had been in contact with through the years, had a copy of the 8-minute videotape and showed it to Jackie.
Oh.
Bill was living in Inman by this time. I don't know where that is. On September 10th, 1997, he answered the telephone. The voice on the other end sounded like his oldest sister, Mary, who lives in San Francisco. Quote, if you have a chair, you better sit down. Are you sitting down? The voice said. I'm Jackie. He had not heard that voice in 63 years.
So it was because of UM.
Oh my God.
It was because of UM in the craziest, most indirected way possible.
We gotta add it. Wow, we haven't had one.
We haven't had it.
Karlin's losing it.
Literally, this is the most I've cried.
Kylan's bawling.
Can you imagine watching the reunion of all the other siblings? Oh my God.
Yeah, so she got to, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So then the
gosh.
last thing I have is Bill passed away in 2008. He was 82. Wanda passed away in 2016 at the age of 95.
Yeah, get it, girl.
And of the other siblings whose names I could find, they're all still alive, I think.
Love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And they all have different names. Not one of them's last name is Harrington.
Oh my God.
Girl, I'm impressed you could find so much.
Oh.
That was great.
Yeah, that little reunion
We
is
needed
the
it.
best thing I've ever seen.
It is. I want to watch it every day.
20 times.
I'm
still crying.
It was even better than Nose Twins.
Yeah, I know it was. It was happier.
I can't remember their names.
Joseph and Sylvia.
Good job, girl. It was my segment. I can't remember.
That was
All right,
great. Thank
love
you.
it.
All right, so the fourth segment is about Angelo Desideri. Takes place June 5th, 1988. Angelo Desideri was a businessman who was 57 years old. This is my second segment in this episode that says they lived with their parents, but their parents lived with them.
Yeah.
In a quiet Phoenix suburb. He was a devout Catholic that had once studied for the priesthood and then, for whatever reason, decided not to go into it.
Good choice.
Probably sex.
Being a human.
That might have been somewhere on the list. His friend Stan Eggleston says that he's a perfectionist in a true sense of the word. He had a few close friends, but he never married. He loved the finer things in life and owned a shopping center and an Italian imports store. On Monday, June 6th, another shop owner noticed that Angelo's store was still closed. And in the reenactment, she's like full on peeking inside and nobody's in there.
You need a nosy shopkeeper neighbor.
Yes, you do. That's so true.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if she alerted somebody or what, but his friend Stan then drove out to his house to see if anything was wrong. Stan says that he saw that certain things were disturbed. He specifically noted that his alarm system was not on. And he went to the next door neighbors and called 911. The police came out and entered the house. Inside, pretty much everything was undisturbed, but there was no one inside. They see that Angelo must have been in the middle of preparing lunch. There's like vegetables out on the counter.
He's
There's
healthy. He's got
the
that asparagus.
I know. But definitely like something was in the microwave. That's for sure. Like he was in the middle of something. On the kitchen table, there were piles of bills laid out as if he was preparing to pay them.
Nightmare.
But like very neatly laid out.
The most.
Your visceral reaction is hysterical.
I hated it. It was so well organized, and also like the act of having to sit down and write checks for all those bills is so
Yes, I was
horrible.
just thinking about that. Like I have images of my dad sitting at his roll top desk with the bills. Pretty much everything in my life is auto pay. I don't do anything.
I have no idea what's in my bank account or what goes out every month.
But
And
I
it just
do
happens.
still have PTSD of bills in my childhood, so it was just very scary.
I could see that.
But what's of note is that the table is just covered with the bills, but they are all completely like organized in this grid that's all like lined up perfect. So in the living room, they find 2 new pairs of pants with a shopping bag. The receipt inside showed that he had bought the pants at 12:47 the day before, so it happened sometime after that he just up and left. Dolores Pellegrini, his sister, says when he left the house that afternoon, he left with absolutely nothing. He didn't take a toothbrush, a pair of slippers, or nothing. A pair of slippers needs to be at the top of the list.
If I go missing, you guys are going to be like, Eliza doesn't have her slippers with her. Something's very wrong.
We will know.
She didn't bring her woolly socks or her slippers.
I did not hear her say that. That's great.
It's the most important thing to bring. Cozy first.
Cozy first.
Screw safety first. It's all about cozy first. She says the only thing they discovered missing was his attaché case, some jewelry, and money.
Is that a briefcase?
Yeah. It's like a thicker briefcase that's like a
People
file.
trying to be fancy.
Yeah,
saying
it's like you would
attaché.
carry documents in
It
it.
has like a little filing system.
Oh,
in it.
right. Now I can see it in my brain.
No other personal items were missing. Detective Tim Ahumada of the Phoenix PD says if they could figure out why he left in such a hurry, it might give them a clue as to where he is.
Wow, that's
I know. I was
an obvious statement to me.
the only clue they find is in the garage.
We knew the answers.
If only someone could tell us just where he went, we would have this
Exactly.
solved by now.
If we knew all the answers, we could solve the case, guys.
So the only thing that does clue them in to look into it is that in the garage, the cover for Angelo's car lay crumpled on the floor, and he was so compulsively neat that he would normally always take it off and fold it carefully before leaving.
Yeah, his friend is in the garage just like picking it up and
Yeah.
looking at it. That is so funny.
I wish, like, if I go missing, you guys will never know because I'm such a fucking mess.
No, same.
If I go
you guys
missing,
will be like, I don't know. It always looks like this.
But also, even with both of you, it'll be like, well, she might have forgotten her wallet. Like,
Yes.
that means nothing.
So true. All of her belongings are here. Nothing's missing, but
She does that 50%
that's pretty
of
normal.
the time.
Yeah.
with you, it would be like, well, she doesn't have anything, but she's got her slippers, so she's fine.
She good.
She planned this one. So a neighbor, Lou Dean, said he'd seen Angelo's Cadillac speed off the day he disappeared. Dean says it was difficult to see and he couldn't really make out any facial features. He just thought that it appeared that it was a person taller than Angelo. He says it wasn't like Angelo to pull out without acknowledging him, which I was like, man, I don't ever acknowledge my neighbors.
Yeah, but did you see the neighborhood they live in?
Such a different time. Yeah, true. So Dean says he had also spoken to Angelo just a couple days before he disappeared. Angelo had been on vacation and Dean was collecting his mail for him. So they had a short interaction while he gave him his mail. 6:32 on Monday evening, 30 hours after Angelo disappeared and 400 miles away from his home, a 1985 Cadillac was found ablaze in a San Diego parking lot. There's a full reenactment of this, so spend that budget, UM.
Oh, man, bigger fire budget.
Yes.
Also, everyone in this time just thought if I burn it, it would go away.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it did back then.
That's true.
Leslie.
That's true.
That's true. An accelerant had been used to set the fire. Investigators traced the owner of the car, and sure enough, it belonged to Angelo Desideri. The authorities examined the car, and there were no personal belongings inside. They also found no signs of forced entry. Investigator Guy Harshberger, which I don't know if your subtitles did this, but they broke it up over 2 lines. So I just thought they were calling him Investigator Guy. I was like, are you kidding me? And I had to rewind
who
it.
is this? Me?
The laziest.
Oh my
Who's
God.
doing these subtitles? Us?
Yeah, that's exactly how we would.
So this one investigator guy was like, whatever.
We have was like in all the subtitles.
I was like, what? I had to rewind. So investigator guy says that the ignition was untampered with. There were no signs of hot wiring. The car was meticulously clean with no bugs or dirt on it.
No bugs.
Which at first I was like, well, this guy was anal retentive, but the car was driven 400 miles into another state, so there should have been something.
So it was
like
washed.
And I was actually proud that the investigators looked at that.
Yes.
At that time, like, you could see that going just amiss, or them not being like, this car is super clean and it drove this far.
Yeah. So Harshberger says, washing the car and then burning it is something that is a first for me in my career. Desideri's sister basically says there is no possible way she can see that her brother burned his car. Like, there was like a straight minute of her talking about, like, no fucking way would he do this.
You don't even need a minute.
And it's so
of
sad that she has to say that.
Yeah. So Harshberger, who is part of the San Diego arson strike team, says that they looked in the car and there was nothing in the trunk that would have been there other than the jack, which I was confused by that sentence. But he explains, no carpet, no padding, no spare tire. They processed the vehicle and there were no fibers or hairs or anything they could find that had been in the trunk. He says that what this tells them is that there could have been something in there, and when they took it out, they took everything around it out.
Oh, okay.
So
I don't think I understood that fully.
Yeah,
either.
I didn't either because the way he worded it was very strange. But yeah, basically they stripped
also this
everything out.
person knows about like
Evidence.
getting rid of evidence.
Yep.
Deep cut.
I love when people know about getting rid of evidence. It's so cool.
Yeah, so they
back
even
then.
took the spare tire. Like, they were like, get rid of it all. So the Phoenix police retraced the drive to San Diego from Phoenix and stopped at all the gas stations along the way. I was like, that's so smart.
Yeah, they're doing a good job.
They are. Nobody matching Angelo's description had been seen. His credit cards had not been used. They also checked car washes. So smart again, but no one had seen Angelo. Authorities said 2 witnesses did report seeing the car minutes before it was torched. One saw a man resembling Angelo in front of the Cadillac. Another woman passing by also saw the man. However, neither witness could conclusively identify him as Angelo. Ahumada says they can narrow that down to about 5 minutes prior to the fire.
Oh.
But the results of the case rest on who the person was. They say it could close the case if it was Angelo. Thanks again, Captain Obvious.
There's no way it was Angelo. Why are we even still acting like it was?
Really spending a lot of time thinking it was him.
They need to maybe move on from that theory, I think, right?
He's like, if only it was just him the whole time.
He's like, Angelo, can you just say it was you, please?
Can you make it easy for us?
So at this point, Stack asked, why would he leave in such a hurry with no visible struggle? Who was standing by the car in San Diego? Even Stack is like, obviously it wasn't him. Why was it set on fire? Perhaps more importantly, what was the motive for his disappearance? The friend says, there's no way, knowing this man like I did, that I can even remotely tie him into any illegal activity with any underworld, anything criminal, anything being involved, anything of this nature that would cause him to possibly leave or disappear with no way out.
He made somebody mad.
Ahumada says there's another life or there's another dimension to Angelo that we have never been able to find.
Stranger Things?
There's an upside down.
There's an upside down to Angelo?
In it. He's in there stacking his bills and folding his shirts.
With that big weird monster.
The Demogorgon?
Yes.
We have a gentleman that would go out of his way for people, someone who was devoted to his family, and yet we have this whole case and all the pieces, they just don't fit. There's a piece missing somewhere, and I think that if I could ever find that piece, I'd find Angelo.
This guy is too much.
I can't. What?
It's just so funny.
If I just knew the who, what, where, when, why, and how, I swear I could solve this case, guys. I swear to God.
He's probably the worst to work with. Everyone's like, yeah, we know.
Yeah.
He's like the kid that raises his arm in class only to state the most obvious thing. And the teacher even hates him. The teacher's like, I know, Harold.
Yeah. I know. I know, Harold.
So Stack says for over 8 months, investigators and friends were baffled as to the motive for Angelo's disappearance. The UM update says March 16th, Phoenix police charged a local resident, Joe Kalo, with a conspiracy to commit armed robbery and burglary on Angelo Desideri. They learned that Carlo was a friend and business associate of Angelo and had detailed information concerning his disappearance. Ahumada says, Joe Kalo told us that all the information he had was told to him by James Majors. James Majors had worked with Kalo in construction. He is currently in a California jail facing several counts of murder. Ahumada says during the interview with Kalo, he stated that Majors went to the house, got into the house by ringing the doorbell and asked for a glass of water, then took Angelo at gunpoint and robbed the house. He was taken out of the house by Majors and driven out into the desert. Kalo says that somewhere between Phoenix and San Diego, Majors murdered Angelo, then placed the body in the trunk of the Cadillac and continued towards San Diego.
Why?
He says the following morning, Majors goes into a hardware store where he purchased a pick and a shovel. Kalo claims that after buying the tools, he had driven down a desert back road to an area adjacent to a rundown house. He then buried Angelo near a large tree. Ahumada says, according to Kalo, Majors did a really unique thing, and that is, as he was leaving the gravesite, he stopped and gave the shovel and pick to the poor people who lived in that shack.
And there's a reenactment of that.
Mm-hmm. And then he exited onto the highway and drove to California. So this part is so weird. And this update is different because they're giving us way more and they're doing a little slight reenactment. So I don't know where this update was filmed or...
It's so confusing.
So it's really weird. So he goes and gives the shovel and the pick that he used that he bought at the hardware store, which we don't know what he did with that yet based on this explanation, to the family that lived there. So I was like, that's cool, I guess, but like not when they were used to dispose of a corpse and cover up a murder.
He clearly was like, great, I'll dispose
here,
this
you guys have this.
I'm a real Robin Hood. I murder and give to the poor.
Give really my murderous tools. Oh.
Joe Kalo also told investigators that Majors had a storage locker. Police searched the locker and did find items that belonged to Angelo and could be traced back to the Desideri home. Another update.
This is still in UM.
Yes.
Okay.
Angelo's body was finally found by campers on April 29th, 1989. It was buried beneath a tree in the desert near Kitchen Creek, California, 45 miles east of San Diego. Giuseppe Joe Kalo was looked at by police after what?
The names in this episode.
Joe is like what he went by. It's
Giuseppe,
Joe in quotes.
The detective.
I know.
Desideri.
There's a lot of Italian names in this segment.
It.
Giuseppe Joe Kalo was looked at by the police after 3 murders happened in Arizona, and police began to piece together that all of the victims were associates of Kalo. Suspecting Kalo in the murders, the police obtained Kalo's phone records, where they saw a lot of calls between Kalo and Jim Majors before and after Desideri's murder. As Majors became a suspect, the police got a search warrant and inside Majors' home found a diary written by Majors' wife, who was a legal secretary. These are pieces of evidence that lead to the arrest of Kalo and Majors.
Wait, what did the diary
Don't worry. I will get back to the diary because the diary is my favorite part of this story.
You know us so well.
She had to say, don't worry. She had it written.
I was like, shut up, guys.
I know. I was like, I can't put it in right here because I have other things to say, but it's
fine.
important.
Okay,
we'll get to
it. We're ready.
So how did we get here?
How did we get here?
Seriously. This one also was so convoluted. Kalo started delivering cocaine in 1987 for a man named Romano Sabraca. Kalo was a restaurateur and owned a restaurant with his wife, Michelina, who was a chef, and their 2 friends. Between June 1988 and February 1989, Kalo had been a part of 7 killings.
Wow.
And I cannot get into all of them because we'll be here all day, but please go read about it. It's so interesting. So as I said, after 3 of the Arizona murders, the police began to draw Kalo as the common denominator in the murders. 2 of the murder victims were his friends and co-owners of his restaurant.
Oh, boy.
So this guy was just not careful.
Like, if you're going to do that, you got to space it out. You got to kill a couple strangers in between.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
He didn't call Alison to ask for advice. He didn't
Guys.
call 9-year-old Alison.
So, and all 7 were somehow mildly in this restaurant business.
Once you give that detective all of the information, it's very obvious to him how this worked.
Also, this is our second restaurant business.
Yes, girl.
It is
and
cutthroat.
real.
It is literally a cutthroat. So please check my episode sources on this one because you can read about all 7 of the murders, and Kalo and Majors were involved in all of them.
If you're as crazy as we are, please read about all 7 of those murders.
Please go read about murders. So, how does straight-laced Angelo Desideri play into this crazy drug ring situation?
I can't wait.
Turns out, Angelo sold drugs and kept records for Sabraca.
What?
So he was totally using his anal retentive organizational skills to basically keep books for a drug lord. It said that Desideri eventually wanted to get out of the business, and this is why Sabraco told Kalo he's got to go. Kalo brought in Jim Major to do the killing. So like I said, please go read about it. These stories are crazy. And I need to just call out one little thing from one of them. For one of them, I need to give you one little detail.
Okay,
one of the victims even outed Kalo by literally writing in her own blood on a magazine right before she died, Joe Kalo had killed us.
What?
His painter friend did it. Get Joe Kalo. So
Holy
Majors was
shit.
the painter in all of his restaurants. Like he would paint all the buildings. She wrote it in her own fucking blood on a magazine. So, Major's wife's diary. I have to read some of it because it's so crazy and fascinating to me.
Dear diary, you'll never believe what happened today.
Yeah. Oh, and okay. I can't read it all because this episode cannot be 4 hours long, but basically she had a diary entry to match up with every murder committed by the two of them. Quote, I decided to keep this diary of Jim's, quote, business meetings away from the house. I had written them in longhand, but decided to type them because my handwriting is sometimes difficult for people to read.
She wanted someone to read it.
I want whoever reads it to be able to decipher everything I have written.
Oh, was she going for a divorce?
Queen. She was afraid of him.
Wow.
This diary begins on June 5th, but actually Jim began his business outside the home before that date. So June 5th was the date that Majors murdered Angelo Desideri after driving him to San Diego. Here is Mrs. Majors' entry for that date. June 5th, 1988. Jim left at 1 p.m. Did not return until June 6th at 9 p.m. Claimed he was out of town on a spur-of-the-moment business deal. He returned with $2,500 in cash. At least that's the amount he showed me. He says he drove to wherever he went and flew back. The evening after he came back, I went out to look in his camper to check it out. I was taking a big chance because he had a violent temper and would have gone through the roof if he caught me. This was a suitcase in the camper with many items in it, most of them in boxes or cloth bags. I looked in only one box. It was a ring box with a man's heavy gold ring with a flat, solid red kind of stone. It was not a new ring.
Holy shit.
He claims the money for our trip to Las Vegas came from Joe Kalo. He went to Vegas and he wanted to go around the casino by himself. He came back in an hour and claimed he had won $2,000. I never know where the money comes from or how much he has.
Holy shit.
On these business forays, he wears the same outfit, a black shirt, dark jeans, and an old pair of tennis shoes. Of course, this could be a cover-up for running around with other women. I'm not sure what's going on. But you can bet your ass I am suspicious as all hell.
Girl!
Is he into something very illegal? Is he involved with the mafia? I honestly believe that Jim is capable of anything.
What was the wife's name? What was her name?
Fuck, I don't know.
Why are you serious?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Holy
She was like,
so once.
Oh my God.
I know. I love her.
Oh my
Once
God.
the police read this portion of the diary, they had reason to believe that the items belonged to Desideri.
Jesus Christ. That guy was finally like, see, I knew if I asked enough, I would get the information I needed.
He's like, literally, here it is, just typed out for me.
Yeah.
This is what I want in every case.
He's like, thank God I didn't have to read her handwriting.
That would have been too hard.
Later, they learned from Kalo how Desideri had died. So I really wanted to read all of her diary entries, but please go check it out. It's in our episode sources, or you can just Google Diary of a Scared Housewife.
What?
Kalo said he became involved. Don't do it right now. Kalo said he became involved in the death of Desideri only because he feared Majors. Kalo was also convicted in Angelo's murder and 6 other contract killings. He received life in prison and died in 2010. Majors, who was never charged with Angelo's murder, received the death penalty for a separate triple murder in California.
Damn.
He died on January 26, 2017. It is not known if Sabraca was ever charged in this case. Interestingly, Majors has allegedly been connected with the death of Jean Tovrea, a Phoenix socialite whose murder was profiled on UM.
Oh my God, that's so fun.
So I'm not going to say how that one turned out because we're going to cover that story, so I don't want to give it away.
Do you know what season it is?
No.
Ooh.
I should look it up. But anyway, that's it.
That's not just it. That was amazing.
I know that I was like, and it wasn't in all of the articles. I was like, how is this not like the biggest part of everything?
And she didn't write a book or anything?
This is annoying. They just say Mrs. Majors' wife. Like, that's why you don't know the name.
Okay, well, then I feel less bad.
Yeah.
Wow. That's insane. I love her.
I love her.
I love her being like...
She was literally like, someone needs to see this and someone needs to know this.
Probably in the event of my death.
Yep. That's
Just
what I was
like
thinking too.
OJ's ex-wife?
Yeah, Nicole Brown, that was his wife.
Yeah, she kept things that were like, she kept it in the safe. If I die, it was him.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Karlin, that was awesome.
When I found that part, I was like, oh my God. She's
if
one of us.
If ever a grandma's going to snap and tell you to shut up, it is that one.
Love it.
We're going to be normal people. people.
We're going to be normal people tonight.
I mean, as normal as we get.
Listeners, we're getting really excited because we just recorded super fast. And now we get to go outside and like hang out with each other. Like we're going to crack some cans in the yard.
Yeah, we are. Because it's gorgeous and it's Portland and it never happens this early. Okay.
Let's
do it.
All
let's
right.
share. Let's feel.
I'll go. I just finished reading A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Room.
Ooh. And it looks like you're giving it to me.
I am. I'm passing it on to you.
Yeah.
It's in tow.
It's very, it's good. Like, not the best book I've read this year. I'm just going to be honest.
Then I don't want it.
No, it's got like 4 stars, not 5 stars.
Okay.
It's really good. It's about like the women in a Pakistani family who are trying to break out of their culture, but also keep their faith and love their families, but find themselves. So Etaf Room, this is her first book. I hope I'm saying her name right, but she has an Instagram account called @Books and Beans where she gives like other book recommendations, so that's a good one to follow. But yeah, it's a good like first debut novel for sure. So that's mine. I am excited when this comes out. It will be past, but you guys, tomorrow Veep starts. The last season of Veep is happening. And if you follow like any or all of them on Instagram, you can see how much fun they have. So much fun making the show. And when Julia Louis-Dreyfus was going through her chemo, they would do different song parodies for her or like lip sync different songs, like, and then send it to her when she was getting her chemo done. And there are videos of that. It's just, they're like a family. It's
Yeah.
the
So nice.
best.
Well, it's a close cast, like a small cast, and it's been, what is this, 7 seasons?
This is 6 or 7.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
And honestly, last year, like, or the year before, whenever it was when she announced, like, we didn't know if she was going to live.
yeah.
So it's just, oh, I love her so much.
That's awesome.
Anyway,
Okay. So Veep.
Veep.
Strong reco.
Nice.
KB, you always go last.
Well, I did finally start Queer Eye, and I have cried
Every episode.
every episode
Me too.
as usual.
It's so good, and I
And
cry.
men especially need to watch it.
There
Like,
was one
I
that
have
I
no
just
patience
watched.
for men who aren't watching it.
Yes.
Well,
there
and
was one I just watched about a Black queer woman in the South.
Yep.
And I cried the most out of any of the episodes
Whose
I've ever
family
watched.
totally disowned her at
Yes.
age 15.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I just love it so much.
Everyone,
It's so great.
Just try it. You will love it.
And then I just had a really cute anecdote from last night. Oh. I was furiously working on my podcast homework, and my husband came home, and he brought in this fuzzy pillow
Oh God.
because my husband and Allison's husband last night went to Dave & Buster's.
What?
They invited your husband. He didn't come. So with the tickets they earned, they bought a best friend's pillow, which is 2 halves of a fuzzy rainbow heart.
My partner put it right in the center of our couch in the center of our living room. And I immediately thought, I can't wait to set that on fire.
I mean, I'm sure there weren't a lot of great prizes to pick
No,
from,
it was
but
very, very sweet.
pretty adorable.
Yeah,
And if you
that's-
haven't read our backstory, which has only been posted on Instagram stories, they were best friends first. So
Yes.
in case you're confused about that
Yes.
relationship.
I did. It's highlighted. Our Instagram's a great place to go because we also save our highlights, and it's highlighted now on Q&As.
Yes, you can watch them.
I have 2 recommendations. The first is the podcast. Have you, any of you listened
Yes.
to either of you? Who the Hell is Hamish?
No, I've heard of that.
By the Australian who did Teacher's Pet.
It's
Oh,
it's good.
okay.
It's really good. It's not murdery. It's about a con man.
Okay.
Yeah,
I love a long con.
You love it. I like it, but it's not like my favorite because I'm just like, this guy's such an asshole.
I know.
It's good. The
I'm
Australian
fascinated
does
by that.
everything very well.
Yeah,
so.
they do. And then the other thing I started watching on Hulu is The Act about Gypsy and Dee Dee Blanchard.
Yes, I've been wanting to watch that so bad.
Why do the ads look crazy? Like,
The only reason why the only reason I love this case. I
Yes,
love the Dee Dee and
same.
Gypsy Blanchard
Oh my
case.
God, me too.
no.
Chloe Sevigny is in it.
Yes,
She plays.
that's right.
Oh God, I love Chloe
who's
so much.
that? What's she from?
Chloe Sevigny's from Kids.
Big Love, American Horror Story.
But she's great, and she plays a perfect character for her. And then it's Patricia Arquette, who's incredible.
Yeah.
The girl who plays Gypsy, I don't know who she is. I'm sure someone younger knows
Yeah,
who
she's
she
been
is.
in some stuff. I can't
Yeah.
place it right now. But
I'm like at
I
the
recognize
age now
her.
where if someone is under the age of 30,
You just don't know.
I don't know who they are. Yeah. It's really good. There's only 3 episodes, so you can catch up really quickly. I thought it was going to be very Lifetime movie, very dramatic. And there are parts that are a bit campy, but it's really good.
I'm glad to hear you've watched it because I've been waiting to hear like someone else.
I mean, yeah, I like it. I don't know what the general, I never like, if I like something, I don't look to see what what the reviews say or the critics or whatever. I don't care. All right.
So, next episode, we are covering, oh man, some of you have been waiting for this.
Oh.
Okay.
Let's not be dicks about it.
Oh, no, we're not. Yeah. Episode 17 is going to be all about Alcatraz. Okay.
Woohoo!
This is one where you might want to watch it because literally it's the only case in this episode. So we've got Alcatraz history. We're going to talk about famous criminals and people who've been at Alcatraz, and then we are going to talk about the Alcatraz reenactment that's actually on UM. So it's going to be a little bit of a different episode, but again, we're just given what Robert Stack gives us, so we have no control.
Yeah, but this is our first time where we're all 3 going to cover the same thing.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting. Yeah. We're a little nervous that you guys will be disappointed, but we're going to make it as great as we can.
We're going to make it fun.
It's going to be fun.
The discussing the reenactment can't not be fun.
Yeah.
Can't not, and that's my job this time.
Mm-hmm. So we have a Patreon, and we appreciate everyone's support on there so much.
So much.
And we provide 2 episodes extra a month on there, a THDI series, The Husband Did It, and a series of 50 States of the Unsolved. And you can go to patreon.com/Resolved Mysteries Podcast if you're interested in supporting us there and getting some new content.
We also are engaging with our Patreon subscribers. They're selecting the nonprofits that we're working with for the next few months. Mm-hmm. And they also just gave us some really good advice on how to end our THDI segments. So we're asking a lot of them. And we're very grateful for them, both financially and emotionally.
Truly. And send us your ideas for listener short stack episodes. We're loving getting those. You can email us stories or your favorite unsolved mystery or nostalgia you have about watching the show with your family or by yourself, or we just love all of that. So you can contact us at resolvedmysteriespodcast.com. You can look at our different tabs on there also to see some other fun things we put up there for our listeners. And our email is resolvedmysteriespodcast@gmail.com. Our P.O. box, where you can send us actual physical things we can hold in our hands.
I checked it yesterday.
Anything?
Nope.
Oh, no.
Okay. It is 14005 Portland, Oregon 97293. And you need to address it to Resolved Mysteries Podcast. That'd be really helpful. And then to see photos relevant to this episode, especially to look at the reenactment or the real video of the siblings all hugging each other and finding each other.
Oh, the best.
In Alison's segment. Follow us on Instagram at @re_solved mysteries and Twitter and Facebook at Resolve the Pod. Something really important. So when we receive reviews on iTunes, we donate $1 to an organization, and this month we're donating to the Give a Little Fund for the victims of the Christchurch shooting. So please leave us a review over there. And if you like our podcast, please tell a friend about us. When you mention us on Instagram, we usually always post it to our stories because it means a lot to us and it helps other people find the podcast and grow our little community. So we'll see you in 2 weeks unless you're a Patreon subscriber, and then we'll see you in a week, honeys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
I am doing.
Move that. I'm sorry. Please hold.
It's
I'm
down
doing-
here. Scroll
I'm reading it
down.
on my
Use the spreadsheet.
That's not a spreadsheet.
She wants
This
to go
is your
analog with
case.
this one.
All right.
Alison.
Alison, tell us your yarn. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
We haven't even started.
Nope.